Welcome to Mitricom. Today, we're diving into a really critical moment for pretty much any development or environmental project. You know the one I'm talking about. It's when the lab results for a contaminated site finally come back. So what happens next? How do we get from a page full of numbers to an actual real-world action plan?
Right, so when that data lands, almost everyone's first instinct is to ask one single question. Did we exceed the screening criteria? And look, that's an important question. Of course it is. But it's just the start. Focusing only on that is kind of like reading the first page of a mystery novel and thinking you've already figured out who did it.
Because here's the most important idea to get your head around. An exceedance is not the final verdict on your site, not even close. It's the trigger. It's the signal that says, okay, time to put on the detective hat, because a much deeper investigation needs to begin. It's the starting gun for the real work, not the finish line.
And that really brings us to two totally different ways of thinking about this. The common approach, it gets stuck on that simple yes or no question. Did we exceed or did we not? But the professional mindset, well, it immediately asks something way more powerful. Okay, so what does this exceedance actually mean for my site, for my project, and for my budget? You see, this is the crucial shift, from just detecting something to strategically evaluating it. And honestly, that shift can save a project from massive, and I mean massive, unnecessary costs.
So this professional mindset leads us straight into the investigation phase. And this isn't just about running more tests or getting more numbers. It's about asking a series of smart, targeted questions to really understand the story that the data is trying to tell us.
This is where we start piecing together the whole picture. We're asking things like, what exactly are we dealing with here? Which contaminants? How deep are they? Are we looking at something in the soil, the groundwater, or is it in the vapor? And here's a big one. Is this just a small, isolated hotspot, or are we looking at something spread all over the site? Every single answer gives us essential context.
And that context is absolutely critical, because the answers to those questions lead to completely different actions. Let's say you have a small patch of impacted soil. That might just mean a simple targeted excavation. Easy enough. But if that exact same contaminant is found in the groundwater, whoa, your entire strategy changes. Now you're talking about dewatering, treatment, maybe even long-term monitoring. The data point itself didn't change, but your understanding of what it means, that changed everything.
So, once we've got some answers to those initial investigative questions, the findings officially shift the project out of that simple screening phase and into a much more rigorous process, the detailed site assessment.
And the journey here follows a really logical flow. It all starts with that initial screening, the simple yes or no. That then triggers the super important step of professional interpretation, which is what we were just talking about. That interpretation then informs the detailed assessment, which, in the end, is what feeds into your final remediation plan. See how each step builds right on top of the last one? It's a methodical process.
So what does a detailed assessment actually involve? Well, it can include a whole range of activities. Things like delineation, which is really just a fancy way of saying we're drawing the exact boundaries of the contamination. It involves a formal risk assessment to figure out any potential harm to people or the environment, and it includes what's called a remediation options appraisal, where you start weighing the pros, the cons, and of course the costs of different cleanup strategies. This is where the real heavy lifting happens.
And make no mistake, this whole technical process, it's not just some academic exercise. It has a direct and often huge impact on the project's bottom line. This is where the data really connects with the dollars. And these are the real-world stakes. How you interpret that first bit of data is going to influence everything. It affects your excavation method, how much soil you need to get rid of, which is a huge cost driver, the permits you need, the health and safety rules for your team, and ultimately the total cost and risk of the whole program.
You know, it really helps to think of your lab data like evidence in a courtroom. It's essential, it's factual, but it doesn't just tell the jury what the verdict should be. The data gives you the foundation, but it needs an expert interpretation, a structured technical judgment to build a case for what to do next. It's not an instruction manual.
So the whole point of this entire process, the ultimate goal, is to transform that raw evidence into a coherent, justifiable, and intelligent plan of action. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Screening data is not the decision. It is the trigger. It's the catalyst that moves you from simply detecting a problem to truly evaluating its nature, and only then can you move to effective action. That three-step process, detection, evaluation, action, that's the core of smart site management.
So the final product of this whole journey is what we call a defensible remediation plan. And it's so much more than just a cleanup plan. It's a practical,
cost-aware strategy that intelligently connects all the dots: the lab results, the site's future use, any engineering challenges, and the complex regulatory world it has to exist in. It's a complete, robust solution.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. Take a look at your own projects and your own processes. Are you just identifying problems by flagging exceedances, or are you truly taking your data, interpreting the evidence, and turning it into clear, confident, and defensible decisions? Because the difference between those two, well, it's everything.